Thylacinus, binomial name Thylacinus cynocephalus, also known as the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian wolf, was an extinct carnivorous marsupial that once lived on the Australian mainland, as well as the islands of Tasmania and New Guinea. Thylacinus became extinct in New Guinea and mainland Australia approximately 3,600 to 3,200 years ago, before the arrival of Europeans, likely due to the appearance of the dingo, as its oldest records date to about that time, although the dingo never reached Tasmania. Before European settlement, there were around 5,000 individuals remaining in the wild on the island of Tasmania. From the 19th century onward, they were regarded as a threat to farmers' livestock, and bounty hunting was introduced. The last known individual died in captivity at Hobart Zoo in Tasmania in 1936. Thylacinus is widespread in popular culture and is considered a cultural symbol of Australia. Thylacinus was called the Tasmanian tiger due to the dark transverse stripes on its back, and the Tasmanian wolf because of its resemblance to a medium to large-sized canid. The name Thylacinus is derived from the Greek thylakos, meaning pouch, and the suffix meaning belonging to, referring to the marsupial pouch. Both sexes possessed pouches. Females used theirs to rear their young, while males had a protective sheath covering their external genitalia. The animal had a stiff tail and could open its jaws to an unusually wide angle. Recent research and anecdotal accounts of its predatory behavior indicate that the thylacine was a solitary ambush predator, specialized in hunting small and medium-sized prey. In the wild, it likely fed on small birds and mammals. It was the only member of both the genus Thylacinus and the family Thylacinidae to survive into modern times. Its closest living relatives are other members of the order Dasyuromorphia, including the Tasmanian devil, from which it is estimated to have diverged 42 to 36 million years ago. Intensive hunting in Tasmania is generally regarded as the primary cause of its extinction, though other contributing factors included disease, the introduction and competition of dingoes, human encroachment on its habitat, and climate change. The last known remains of a thylacine were found in 2022 at the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery. Since its extinction, there have been numerous searches and unconfirmed reports of live sightings, but none have been verified. Thylacinus has been widely used as a symbol of Tasmania. The animal appears on the official coat of arms of Tasmania. Since 1996, Australia has observed National Threatened Species Day on September 7th, the date the last known thylacine died in 1936. Around the world, universities, museums, and other institutions study the animal. Its entire genome has been sequenced, and there are ongoing efforts to clone it and bring it back to life. Numerous examples of Thylacinus carvings and rock engravings dating back to around 1000 BCE have been found. Petroglyph depictions of Thylacinus can be seen at the Rock Art site in Western Australia. By the time the first European explorers arrived, the animal had already disappeared from mainland Australia and New Guinea and was rare in Tasmania. Europeans may have encountered it in Tasmania in 1642 when Abel Tasman first arrived on the island. During a coastal feast, reports described tracks of wild animals with claws like those of a tiger. In 1772, Marc-Joseph Marion Dufresne, arriving with the mascarin, reported seeing a tiger cat. The earliest records of the modern Thylacinus date to the early Pleistocene, with the oldest fossil remains from southeastern Australia belonging to the Calabrian stage, about 1.77 to 0.78 million years ago. Specimens from the Pliocene-age chinchilla fauna, described in 1894 by Charles de Viz as Thylacinus rostralis, have in the past been suggested to represent Thylacinus cynocephalus, but curatorial errors or uncertainty in their attribution have been noted. The family Thylacinidae includes at least 12 species in 8 genera. Around 42 to 36 million years ago, thylacinids diverged from other members of the order Dasyuromorphia. The oldest known member of the family is Beaumaris turnbully, which lived in the late Oligocene of Riverslea, Queensland, around 25 million years ago. Early thylacinids were less than 10 kilograms, 22 pounds in body mass. While they probably consumed insects, small reptiles, and mammals, increasing signs of a carnivorous diet are evident in the early Miocene genus Beaumaris. Members of the genus Thylacinus are characterized by the development of specialized carnivorous dentition and a marked increase in size, with the largest species, Thylacinus potens and Thylacinus magiriani, approaching the size of a wolf. During the late Pleistocene and early Holocene, the modern Thylacinus was widespread in Australia and New Guinea, although it was never abundant. Descriptions of Thylacinus are based on preserved specimens, photographic records, skins, skeletons, and both black and white photographs and films taken of animals in captivity and in the field. Thylacinus resembled a large, short-haired dog with a stiff tail that extended smoothly from the body like that of a kangaroo. Adult thylacines stood about 60 centimeters, 24 in, at the shoulder, with a body length, excluding the tail, of 1 to 1.3 meters, 3.3 to 4.3 feet, and a tail length of 50 to 65 centimeters, 20 to 26 in. Recorded estimates of body mass are scarce, but it is thought they weighed between 15 and 35 kilograms, 33 to 77 pounds. A 2020 study examining 93 adult specimens, 40 of known sex, estimated an average weight of 16.7 kilograms, 37 pounds, based on volumetric analysis with a range of 9.8 to 28 kilograms, 22 to 62 pounds. There was slight sexual dimorphism, with males averaging 19.7 kilograms, 43 pounds, and females 13.7 kilograms, 30 pounds. The skull was noted to resemble that of canids, especially the red fox. Unusually for marsupials, Thylacinus possessed reduced epipubic bones, skeletal elements typically associated with marsupials, which are markedly diminished in this species. This was once thought to be a synapomorphy with sparassodonts, but both groups are now believed to have reduced their epipubics independently. Its sandy brown coat featured 15 to 20 distinct dark stripes along the back, rump, and base of the tail, giving rise to its nickname, tiger. The stripes were more prominent in younger animals, fading with age, with one stripe extending down the outer thigh. The fur was dense and soft, up to 15 millimeters, 0.59 in long, varying in color from light brown to dark brown, with a cream-colored belly. Its rounded, erect ears measured about 8 centimeters, 3.1 in, and were covered in short fur. Early scientific studies suggested a keen sense of smell for tracking prey, but brain structure analysis indicated poorly developed olfactory bulbs, implying that sight and hearing were more important for hunting. In 2017, Burns and Ashwell published comparative cortical maps of the thylacine and Tasmanian devil brains, showing that the thylacine had a larger, more modular basal ganglion. The authors associated these differences with its more predatory lifestyle. A 2023 forebrain analysis indicated morphology more similar to other dasyuromorph marsupials than to canids. The thylacine could open its jaws extraordinarily wide, up to 80 degrees, a feature visible in David Flea's 1933 short black and white film of a captive specimen. It had strong jaw muscles and 46 teeth, but studies suggest its bite was too weak to kill sheep. The tail vertebrae were partially fused, limiting full tail movement. Ossification may have occurred at maturity. The tail tapered toward the tip. Juveniles had a crest near the end. Female thylacines had a pouch with 4 teats, but unlike many marsupials, the pouch opened to the rear. Males, unique among Australian marsupials, had a scrotal pouch into which they could retract the scrotum for protection. Thylacine tracks can be distinguished from those of other native or introduced species. Unlike foxes, cats, dogs, wombats, or Tasmanian devils, thylacines had a large rear pad and four distinct front pads arranged in a nearly straight line. The hind feet resembled the forefeet but had four toes instead of five, and the claws were non-retractable. The plantar pad was trilobate, divided into three distinct lobes by deep grooves. The overall shape and asymmetry of the foot differ markedly from that of canids such as dogs and foxes. The thylacine's gait was noted to be stiff and somewhat awkward, making it incapable of sustained high-speed pursuit. It could, however, perform a bipedal hop similar to a kangaroo, behavior observed in captive specimens on occasion. Giller suggested this was used as a rapid movement when alarmed. The animal could also balance on its hind legs and stand upright for short periods. Observers in both the wild and captivity noted that when agitated, the thylacine would growl and hiss, often accompanied by a threat yawn. During hunts, it may have emitted rapid, repetitive barks similar to a cough for communication among family members. It also produced a long, whining cry for long-distance identification and a low, guttural noise used for close contact. Some observers described a strong, distinctive odor. Others reported a faint, clean animal smell, or none at all. It may have released a scent when agitated, similar to its relative, the Tasmanian devil. The thylacine preferred the dry eucalyptus forests, wetlands, and grasslands of mainland Australia. Indigenous Australian rock art depicts its presence across mainland Australia and New Guinea. Evidence for its survival on the mainland into historical times comes from a mummified carcass found in a cave on the Nullarbor Plain, Western Australia, in 1990. Radiocarbon dating indicated it was about 3,300 years old. Recently studied fossilized footprints also indicate the species' historical presence on Kangaroo Island. The species' northernmost record is from the Kiowa rock shelters in Chimbu Province, highlands of Papua New Guinea, dating to the early Holocene, 10,000 to 8,500 years ago. In 2017, White, Mitchell, and Austin published a large-scale analysis of 5 thylacine mitochondrial genomes, showing that before the last glacial maximum, the mainland population was divided into eastern and western groups, and that Tasmanian thylacines had low genetic diversity by the time Europe. Although the peak breeding period was in winter and spring, there is evidence that reproduction occurred at least during several parts of the year. Pouch young have been recorded at all times of the year. They produced up to 4 young in a litter, typically 2 or 3, carried the young in the pouch for up to 3 months, and protected them until they reached at least half of adult size. Very young pouch young were hairless and blind, but their eyes were open. Once they left the pouch, they were fully furred. Juveniles also possessed their own rudimentary pouches until about 9.5 weeks old. After leaving the pouch, and until they were developed enough to follow their mother, immature young remained in the den while the mother hunted. Thylacines were successfully bred in captivity only once, in 1899, at the Melbourne Zoo. In the wild, their lifespan was between 5 and 7 years, but captive individuals survived for up to 9 years. Historical accounts indicate that in the wild, Thylacinus hunted small mammals and birds, with waterfowl being the most frequently recorded avian prey. Reports mention predation on black ducks, swamp hens, Tasmanian native hens, bitterns, herons, ardea, and black swans. The species may also have preyed upon the now extinct Tasmanian emu. Some accounts suggest that thylacines could also have taken lizards, frogs, and fish. European settlers believed that Thylacinus regularly preyed on farmers' sheep and poultry. However, analysis by Robert Paddle indicates little evidence that thylacines were significant predators of sheep or poultry, though they may have occasionally attacked them. Instead, many sheep deaths were likely caused by feral dogs. During the 20th century, thylacines were often described as blood drinkers. According to Paddle, the popularity of this story seems to trace back to a second-hand tale heard by Geoffrey Smith at a shepherd's hut. Recent studies suggest that Thylacinus was not adapted to hunt large prey. A 2007 study found that while it could open its jaws widely like modern mammalian predators to consume large prey, it was not equipped for a powerful bite comparable to large canids. Based on skull biomechanics, it likely specialized in hunting small to medium-sized prey. In 2011, a University of New South Wales study using advanced computer modeling revealed that the thylacine had surprisingly weak jaws. While predators typically target prey up to their own body size, an adult thylacine, weighing about 30 kilograms or 66 pounds, would have been unable to subdue prey larger than 5 kilograms, 11 pounds, indicating it probably fed only on smaller animals, such as bandicoots and pademelons. Although extinct on mainland Australia, thylacines persisted on the island of Tasmania into the 1930s. At the time of first European settlement, their highest concentrations were in the northeast, northwest, and north-central regions of the state, with an estimated population of around 5,000. They were rarely seen but increasingly attacked sheep. This led to bounty programs to control their numbers. From 1830, the Van Diemen's Land Company offered bounties, and between 1888 and 1909, the Tasmanian government paid £1 per adult and 10 shillings per pup. A total of 2,184 bounties were officially paid, though the actual number killed was likely higher. Popular belief linked their extinction to relentless persecution by farmers and bounty hunters. In addition to hunting, many other factors contributed to their decline and eventual extinction, including competition with feral dogs introduced by European settlers, habitat degradation, already low genetic diversity, the decline or extinction of prey species, and disease, possibly similar to that seen in captive populations. A 2012 study suggested that disease was human-introduced and also present in the wild population, sharply shortening lifespan and significantly increasing juvenile mortality. In 1921, a photograph of a thylacine with a chicken, taken by Henry Burrell, became widely circulated and may have reinforced its reputation as a poultry thief. The image had been cropped to conceal that the animal was in captivity, and later analysis suggested it showed a dead specimen posed for the camera, possibly with photographic manipulation. By the late 1920s, the animal had become very rare in the wild. Although many still blamed thylacines for sheep attacks, in 1928, the Tasmanian Advisory Committee for Native Fauna recommended establishing a reserve similar to Savage River National Park to protect the remaining population, with potential habitats including the Arthur Pieman region of western Tasmania. By the early 20th century, the rarity of thylacines had led to growing international demand for captive specimens, further pressuring the already small population. Despite the export of breeding pairs, all attempts to breed them in captivity outside Australia failed, and the last thylacine outside the country died at London Zoo in 1931. The last known wild thylacine was shot in 1930 by farmer Wilf Batty in Maulbana, in the island's northwest. The animal, thought to be male, had been seen for several weeks around Batty's property. Genetic research conducted in 2012 examined diversity in thylacines before extinction. Results showed that the final Tasmanian population was highly inbred due to complete geographic isolation from mainland Australia. Further studies in 2017 indicated that this reduction in genetic diversity began well before human arrival in Australia, possibly 70,000 to 120,000 years ago. Thylacinus remained classified as an endangered species into the 1980s. At the time, international standards required that a species could not be declared extinct until 50 years had passed without confirmed records. With no evidence of survival after more than half a century, it met the criterion and was declared extinct by the International Union for Conservation of Nature in 1982 and by the Tasmanian government in 1986. It was removed from Appendix 1 of CITES in 2013. The last captive thylacine lived at Hobart Zoo as an endling, the last known individual of its kind, until it died on the night of 7th of September 1936. The female had been trapped by Elias Churchill and sold to the zoo in May 1936. The sale was not publicly disclosed because trapping was illegal and Churchill risked a fine. After her death, the remains were transferred to the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery. Because the animal had been illegally captured, the museum did not properly record the specimen, and it went unrecognized for decades until taxidermist notes from 1936 or 1937 were discovered. This led to a complete audit of the museum's thylacine collection and the specimen's rediscovery in late 2022. Although efforts to protect the thylacine began as early as 1901, partly due to increasing difficulty obtaining specimens for overseas collections, political obstacles prevented any effective measures from being enacted before 1936. Formal protection came too late on the 10th of July 1936, just 59 days before the death of the last known individual in captivity. Searches and unconfirmed sightings. From 1967 to 1973, zoologist Jeremy Griffith and dairy farmer James Malley conducted the most intensive thylacine search in history along Tasmania's west coast. This included systematic surveys, installation of automatic camera stations, prompt investigation of reported sightings, and the establishment of a research team with Dr. Bob Brown. They concluded that there was no evidence for the continued existence of the species. From 1936 to 1998, the Department of Conservation and Land Management recorded 203 reports of Thylacinus sightings in Western Australia. On the mainland, sightings were most often reported in southern Victoria. According to the Department of Primary Industries, Parks, Water and Environment, there were 8 unconfirmed Thylacinus sighting reports between 2016 and 2019. With the last unconfirmed visual sighting occurring on the 25th of February 2018. Following the extinction and presumed eradication of the Thylacinus, speculation and the search for a living specimen became a topic of interest among some members of the cryptozoology subculture. The search for the animal has been the subject of books and articles, with most alleged sightings considered doubtful. A 2023 study published by Brooke et al. Compiled many 20th century alleged sightings of Thylacinus in Tasmania, and, contrary to the prevailing belief that the species became extinct in the 1930s, argued that the Tasmanian Thylacinus may have actually persisted into the late 1990s or early 2000s. In 1983, American media magnate Ted Turner offered a $100,000 reward for proof of the Thylacinus' continued existence. In March 2005, as part of celebrating its 125th anniversary, the Australian news magazine The Bulletin offered a $1.25 million reward for the safe capture of a live Thylacinus. When the offer closed at the end of June 2005, no evidence confirming the animal's existence had been presented. Subsequently, Tasmanian tourism operator Stuart Malcolm offered a $1.75 million reward. Research on Thylacinus relies largely on preserved specimens held in museums and other institutions around the world. The number and distribution of these specimens are documented in the International Thylacine Specimen Database. As of 2022, 756 specimens are held in 115 museum and university collections across 23 countries. In 2017, CSIRO and Where Light Meets Dark jointly produced a reference library containing 159 micrographic images of Thylacinus hairs. In 1999, the Australian Museum in Sydney launched a cloning project. The goal was to use genetic material from specimens collected and preserved in the early 20th century to clone new individuals and restore the species from extinction. Several molecular biologists dismissed the project as a public relations stunt. In late 2002, researchers succeeded in extracting replicable DNA from the specimens. On the 15th of February 2005, the museum announced it was discontinuing the project. In May 2005, the project was revived by a consortium of interested universities and a research institute. In August 2022, the University of Melbourne announced a partnership with the Texas-based biotechnology company Colossal Biosciences to attempt to bring back the Thylacinus by reconstructing it using its closest living relative, the fat-tailed dunnart, and reintroducing it to Tasmania. The university had recently sequenced the genome of a juvenile Thylacinus specimen and established a thylacine genetic restoration laboratory. The research was led by Andrew Pask. The project was met with skepticism by other scientists not involved in the effort. The Thylacinus has been widely used as a symbol of Tasmania. The animal appears on Tasmania's official coat of arms. It is also used in the official logos of the Tasmanian government and the city of Launceston. Additionally, it appears at the University of Tasmania's graduation ceremony and on the badge of the submarine HMAS Descheneux. Since 1998, it has featured on Tasmanian vehicle license plates. The Thylacinus has also appeared on postage stamps from Australia, Equatorial Guinea, and Micronesia, as well as in films and animated works. In Aboriginal traditions, rock art depicting animals resembling the Thylacinus can be found in northern Australia, particularly in the Kimberley region. Since 1996, 7 September, the date in 1936 when the last known Thylacinus died, has been commemorated in Australia as National Threatened Species Day.